Hi, Room 6. Today is Thursday, it's May 14th, and this is our mini lesson for reading and writing for our informational unit. Okay, so today we're going to talk about something very important, and I know a lot of us are working on and have started working on our research and have been taking notes on our informational research Google slide presentation. So today what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk a lot about sources. You might also hear the word resource. So a source is any place that you can find information from. Okay, so sources are things that researchers use when they're wanting to learn more about a topic. So it's really any place that you can find and read information from. So a source that most all of us know, it's probably one of the primary source, one of the best sources you could use is a book. Okay, so books are sources, especially nonfiction books for our topic and what we're working on. So a book could be a source. A newspaper article is another example of a source. We also have videos, news clips that you might watch on the TV. Those could be sources as well. Articles could be sources. And because we have been doing distance learning, are going to be using a lot of online sources. Now, online sources are any place that you can find information from on the internet. So these could be articles that we're reading online. They could be websites, which we've been using a lot of. They could be news clippings that you find on the internet or videos that you find on the internet. So online sources are going to be the primary sources that we use to complete our research project. Now, it's very important that we know and we start thinking about where we're getting our information from. And that's one of the tricky things about finding information online or on the internet is that so many people have access to the internet and can go on a web page or create their own web page and put any kind of information they want on there. Right? So that's a little bit scary to think about because we want to make sure as good researchers that we know where we're getting our information from and that we're getting it from a reliable source and that that source is providing us with correct information. So we're going to watch a quick little video where they talk a little bit more about online sources and how good researchers always keep in mind where they're getting the information from and choose sources that are reliable.
Hey, have you been using my library card again? You didn't borrow Robot Self-Repair Made Easy? Teach yourself artificial intelligence. Okay, I know I didn't take out all these Twilight movies. Dear Tim and Moby, I use the internet to research all of my papers and reports. But how do I know if I'm getting good information? From Sydney. Hey, Sydney. There are a lot of great resources online. Encyclopedias, periodicals, government studies, university research. They serve up millions of pages you can use for schoolwork. Unfortunately, plenty of sites aren't that reliable, or just plain wrong. Like this one, pretty sure humans and dinosaurs never lived side by side. Moby and I stumbled on this site while we were researching the natural selection movie. Fortunately, we have a handy-dandy system for evaluating online sources, and it can be boiled down to just 3 main steps. Yep, first we try to find out a little about the publisher. In other words, the person or group running the website. One good tip is to look at the domain.
This is very important.
After the last dot in the address. If it ends with a .gov, well, that means it's a government website. And .edus are reserved for accredited colleges and universities.
So I'm going to pause the video real quick. So one thing I want you guys to notice is say that you are looking for information on your animal and you cannot find your animal on the list of websites that Miss Milan provided. That happens. Guess what? I picked an animal, the echidna, and I was looking through today trying to do more research on slide 9, which is trying to figure out more about the echidna's diet. And I realized that my animal is not really on very many of those websites. So now what I have to do is look elsewhere and find other websites that will provide me with the information I need. So if you're searching on Google or you go to a different website. One thing you can do is check at the top, looking very closely at we call this the domain or the website URL, and looking at the very end. And if you notice that your website ends in .gov or .edu, these are more reliable sources. So most likely the information that you'd get from these sources would be correct. So I highly recommend using websites that end in .gov or .edu. .org is also a pretty good one. Those ones can be a little tricky, but I would say if it ends in .org, that's also a good website to use for the most part.
Most of the sites in these domains are rigorously fact-checked. The information they contain has been reviewed and verified to be true. Other common domains, .coms, .orgs, .nets, whatever, are open. That means any old person can buy one of these spaces and put whatever information they want there. That's true. Most popular open domain resources are reliable, like BrainPop. We're a .com and we fact-check everything. But you need to be skeptical of sites you've never heard of before. That means you shouldn't accept what they say at face value. First, do a little detective work about the site itself. Most homepages have an about link, often at the very bottom. It'll take you to a statement by the editor or publisher laying out who they are and what they stand for. This is a good place to look for any potential bias or slant in their viewpoint.
And we're going to stop the video there. So that's one thing I would like for you guys to keep in mind. I'm going to share my other screen with you real quick. This is the things that I want you guys to keep in mind when you're researching. So when finding websites and articles on the internet, don't just go to any old website and trust everything that you're reading from that website. You need to be smart and you need to be a critical thinker and you need to be evaluating where you get your information from. So when you find these websites and articles, good researchers always think about where they're finding the information. Websites, once again, that end in .gov, .org, or .edu are the most reliable. .coms can be a little tricky because really it can be created by anyone. So if you do go to a .com, you really want to investigate the website more and look into who is publishing the website and if it's coming from a reputable source. Okay. .edus are great because they come from an educational institution like a university or a college. So the information that they're putting out there is fact-checked and it's correct. A .gov would also be a great website because it's information that's been posted by the government. And one thing I am going to mention is absolutely in no way is Wikipedia a reliable source. So do not take any information from Wikipedia. And the reason I say that is Wikipedia is a .com, but also anybody can go onto Wikipedia. If Miss Milan wanted to go onto Wikipedia right now and post information, I could do that. So anyone has access to it and can put information on there. And if you think about that, well, that probably means that people can put information on there that isn't true. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you guys again. I'm going to go to my slide, my informational presentation. And remember, I have been working on the echidna. Okay, so I went yesterday, I completed my slide 8, I found a lot of information on the description. So now today, for Thursday, May 14th, I checked the distance learning website and it says that today we need to focus on researching and completing slide 9. So it says slide 9 is diet, and you're going to use this page to take notes about your animal's diet. What does your animal eat? How much, etc. Okay, those are not the only 2 questions you should answer. I am going to highly recommend that you guys find as much information as possible, 6 to 7 really good pieces of information for each subcategory. So just because I have those 2 questions there does not mean that you just need to answer those questions. I would include a lot in here about the diet of your animal. So your animal's diet is really what your animal eats. If there's restrictions to what they eat, what do they prey on, things like that. So what I'm going to do today is I can either go to slide 5 and start looking and finding more articles on the echidna. And that's something I did a little bit earlier. And what I noticed is I went to a couple websites. So for example, I went to National Geographic and I was looking for the echidna on here. I looked under mammals and I noticed that I couldn't find it. which means that this source is not going to be great for me because they don't have information on my animal. So I went through several different other websites that I provided and I couldn't find that either. So then what I decided to do is I said, okay, I need to find a better source. I went to the distance learning website and I clicked on reading and writing. And this is what you can do. Is then what I would do absolutely is go to the Destiny database. Now a database is a really great source to use because the database is full of articles that have already been fact-checked. So everything you get from a database is valid and true information. So I'm going to say that again, that this database that our school district provides is probably the best source you can use. So please, please, please make sure that you find information from here because it's a really great source. So remember, when you go to the database, you're going to look on the left-hand side and click on Atypical Schools. You're going to find John Muir. And then you'll scroll down here to Britannica School Animal Kingdom. And it shouldn't ask you to sign in, but if it does, try just using your school ID and password, and we'll see if that works. But I don't think that it should ask you to sign in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in my animal, and I might even include a keyword of diet. And remember, if you go back to slide 7, you guys have all these keywords that you came up with that you can use for your research report. So I'm going to maybe type in echidna's diet, or I'll just type in echidna and see if I can find something on their diet. So I'm going to click here and type in echidna. And maybe I'll even type in diet and see what comes up with, see if anything comes up with that. Okay, so I see diet down here, but I see specifically the echidna, which is a mammal. I'm guessing that this article will help me. Yep, there's my animal. I'm going to look at some of the headings real quick and see if this is, a reputable source. I shouldn't say reputable source, but a good source. It is a reputable source, but a good source for me to find information. Okay, this doesn't have a ton of information, but, ooh, there we go. I see that this one does. Okay, so I'm going to use this to help me. And what I'm going to do now is start reading through and looking for information that will relate to my research today, which is really focusing on their diet, what they eat, and what they prey on. And I'm going to be very careful to make sure that I paraphrase and I take that information and I put it into my own words. And I see here, for example, like say, and one thing that's really nice too is you guys can click on the listen. The only living mammals that lay. And it will actually read it to you, which is great. But I notice here that I already see here, I kind of skimmed over. I notice they were talking a little bit about how an echidna uses its long, sticky tongue to catch ants, termites, worms, and other invertebrates. So when I read, because I did read this section earlier, before I made the video, I'm noticing here that this is good information that I can pull. So I'm not going to copy and paste it. I'm going to read it, stop, think to myself, what did I learn, and put it in my own words. I'm going to paraphrase. I might even cover, or you might even cover the text when you're doing that as well, so that you don't get tempted to copy. So what could I say here instead of using word for word what the author said? Well, maybe I'll say that the echidna eats with its tongue, or I could say the echidna catches or eats termites, ants, and worms with its tongue. Okay, I didn't copy, I put it in my own words. So I'm going to put that here. The echidna eats termites, worms, and if I need to, maybe copy a word or two, like for spelling, that's okay. Ants, I didn't include that. And also invertebrates. Invertebrates. With its tongue. And then I might include their tongues are very long, okay, which I'm assuming help them to catch these things, right? help them to catch their prey. Okay, so I took that information, I paraphrased, and I put it into my own words. And that's what we want to remember to do every time we find information from a source. And what I need to do now is go back to my source page, don't forget, and I need to put in this source because it's a different source. I didn't use the San Diego Zoo website. I used a different source here. What we're going to call this source is Britannica School. And then what I can do, or what you can do, is copy the URL and paste it here so that you have it. Okay, and so now what I'm going to do is continue reading, see if I can find more information on their diet, and then I'm going to look on Google. I might go to a different source, paying really close attention to the website that I find that information from. But I think I'm going to find a lot of information in the database because it's probably one of the best places for you guys to search and find the information that you need. Okay, so today what your job is to continue your research, read several different articles, try out the database online, and complete slide 9 today, which is researching your animal's diet. And I would have it done by 8 o'clock so that when Miss Milan comes in to check and leave you comments today, you will receive your credit and participation points.